Welcome to this video series on decision-making and plagiarism and dealing with gray zones across academic fields. This is the third of 3 videos. We will speak about detection and judgment. The 3 videos in this series were also part of a live webinar at Elsevier's Researcher Academy. The speaker for this video is Professor Michael Seadle. He is Executive Director of and Principal Investigator at the HEADT Center, which is short for Humboldt-Elsevier Advanced Data and Text Center, where we focus our research and educational efforts on research integrity. Michael Seadle now begins with a section on detection and judgment.
There are a number of approaches to detecting plagiarism. One of the most common and most widely used is called Authenticate. It's an automated detection system. Some people know it as Turnitin. And what it does essentially is to match words. That's an important process. It needs a big database of articles, and at present it has access to a very large database. Sometimes it also uses articles that have been submitted to it. I'm going to be talking to you about approaches to detecting plagiarism. Authenticate is one of the most widely used tools for this. Some people know it as Turnitin. Turnitin is used more with undergraduates, and Authenticate is used more by academic publishers. What it does is to match words against a known database of articles. This means it's got a massive source of existing articles, many of them going back decades because they have been digitized. And Authenticate has an advantage over many systems that it has controls that let you decide how many words in a sequence need to match in order to be flagged. Not every one of the tools can do this. Nonetheless, there's a great deal of manual interpretation that needs to be done after you get the results. Another approach to this is Ronnieplug. It does officially crowdsourcing, though in fact Ronnieplug also uses a number of digital tools as well, especially ones that are not terribly expensive. And people who are dedicated to finding plagiarism spend an enormous amount of time looking at possible sources. Again, there's a lot of interpretation involved. One of the advantages of Ronnieplug is that it has very clear definitions about what it considers plagiarism. These are not necessarily the definitions that everyone would accept. A problem with Ronnieplug is the way it displays the barcode, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. I just want to say percentages can be misleading here. The HEADT Center uses a grayscale. This is something that I developed when I was writing one of my books on quantifying research integrity. There are cases where there's actually a reference, but the reference is imperfect. Quotation marks are missing. It's incomplete. This is a problem, but it is not perhaps a fatal problem. It's negligence. Another group of copying issues has to do with matches, where you have exact match and you've got several sentences. Yes, that's pretty certainly plagiarism. The number of contiguous words in a unit matters, and the point of the rest of this grayscale is really to say, what are the number of words, what is the unit that we are talking about? And it ranges from something that is really potential plagiarism, fairly serious, to questionable practices, and maybe even not plagiarism. Something like standard words or phrases, definitely not plagiarism. General knowledge, and sometimes there is a mistake on what actually was intended as an implied quotation. This is an example of a barcode. It's visually very effective. This was used for the dissertation of Karl Theodor Freiherr zu Gutenberg, who was the defense minister in Germany. What is important here is, well, there are 371 pages with some form of plagiarism, according to the statistic, 94.4%. The number of lines is actually a much smaller set. It's only 63.8. Now, this is still enormously high. Clearly, he did plagiarism, but the line count is really a more accurate measure. When we're talking about facts, facts are complicated. Here's a German dissertation by an author whose identity I'm not going to say because all of these investigations need to be handled with considerable confidentiality. Nonetheless, and this is my translation, nonetheless, it's a good example of a fact. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is a state in the northeast of Germany. Certainly, others have used these same words. That's unsurprising because these words are really stating a set of facts. State, yes, clearly. Northeast, Germany, these are geographic expressions. It would be unreasonable to expect that someone take a phrase like this, do a search to find whether someone else had used this exact set of words to describe these facts, and then try and create something that is different. The creativity here is unnecessary. It is nil. Some of the potential questions that we should be talking about for plagiarism: how does one detect the difference between simple bad practice and deception? Deception really is hard to prove. Most people simply make errors, and the question is how much negligence is really necessary before there are serious consequences. What are the best forms of measurement for determining when the amount of word and phrase copying becomes serious enough? I have been revising the Greyscale to give somewhat more precise definition to this. There are areas, for example, such as in the literature review, where you almost certainly are going to repeat many more words because the topic is the same. It's also important to think about the degree to which plagiarism is an economic issue, that is, the theft of intellectual property, and to what degree it's simply an ethical one. Simply in the sense that money is not changing hands. Most of the plagiarism that we're dealing with in the academic world today is not something that has a great deal of economic value. We're not talking about whole books. We are talking about a page, a paragraph here or there. That is also something to keep in mind. If you have questions for us, Melanie will tell you about them.
Thank you very much for listening. This was the last of 3 videos in our series on plagiarism. Feel free to contact us at info@head.eu.